Good afternoon and welcome to this webinar about service and parts information. This is the fourth one in a series that Etteplan has planned for April and May. The first one on the 16th of April about the transformation of technical documentation. The second one was about information maturity. Last week we saw a webinar about user-centric content from my colleague Pim Becker. And today, like I said, I will be talking about service and parts information. You could wonder why specifically about service and parts information. Well, the reason is because we know that the aftermarket business is a very important part of the business of many companies. And what we see is that many times that service and information and parts information is not set up in the most efficient and smart way, and thus there is a lot still to be gained when it comes to the after sales market. First, a short introduction of myself. You can see my picture over there. My name is Manuel Comiche. I'm a sales manager at Etteplan in the Netherlands. I've been working in the technical documentation and translation business for almost 20 years now. The topics that I would like to address today when it comes to service and information parts and parts information is first of all the business goals that many companies have for service. So what would they like to reach with their business goals? Secondly, I would like to go to see how it is set up in practice. So how do companies set up actually their service and parts information, and what goes wrong there? And lastly, to finish the webinar, I would like to to show you how you can improve things to make sure that you meet your business goals for service, and you can get the revenue and the profitability that you would like to get out of your aftermarket. So first of all, let's start with the business goals for service for most of the company. This slide is based on research that has been done by the Aberdeen Group, and it shows what the top business goals are for service. Number one of the list is customer satisfaction. Companies will very much like to retain their customers and to make sure that they are happy. They also very much would like to improve their service-related profitability, but also to improve the quality of their service data. So these are the top business goals that most companies have for their after-sales market. Research, though, also shows that, it not always goes right. Actually, things go wrong. And for instance, if you look at research done by Deloitte, you see that service engineers actually need a lot of time in finding and understanding maintenance tasks, simply because the information they get provided is not clear enough, or they don't have quick and easy access to the information they require. And secondly, also research done by another group is that about 40% of service visits actually fail because there is a lack of information. So there we have the business goals. But what we see in practice is that there is a lot that goes wrong because of these instructions for service and parts not being organized well enough. So why do we need so much time to find information and understand it? When we look at nowadays practice, we talk to a lot of companies and see how they have set it up. And we have been talking about this in previous webinars as well. And that is that many companies still have a very product-centric approach when it comes to technical information, instead of this user-centric approach that we would advise. And that means that when they publish information, the target audience is actually not taken into account sufficiently. So a service engineer that needs to service a specific product might end up missing the information he actually needs to do the job that he has to do. The other thing is that instructions many times are hard to understand due to ambiguity, inconsistencies, or they're simply not explained clear enough. And well, like most of you probably know, the cause of that is that many times instructions are still created by engineers that of course do know a lot about the technique, but do most of the time not have enough linguistic background to produce clear instructions. Another aspect is that, of course, using visuals is very important for providing clear information, clear instructions. But what we see in practice that many times unclear photographs are used that do actually not provide the support that is needed to understand instructions properly. So these are content related issues that we see in practice. And well, you might end up receiving this kind of document with a lot of text. And if you start reading it, you will find out that, well, it's hard to understand. It's a mixture of different kind of information, which makes it hard for the user to find the specific instruction he's looking for. And if you look at the photographs, well, there are a lot of pictures, but they actually won't help you to understand the written instructions. So that was about the content side of technical documentation, but we also see issue when it comes to the technical setup of the documentation, the way it's organized. What you see on this slide is the conventional, the traditional way many companies have still set up their technical documentation. Most of the time, it's created in Microsoft Word. There are different departments that are creating their own part of technical information. It's stored on a local server. There is hardly reuse of information content that was created by one department and reused by the other one. And well, most of the time, it's published in PDF. So the issues we see at traditional documentation, and still many companies nowadays, is that they have this traditional, we call it parallel process for creation, translation, and publication of their technical documentation. And like I said, each company department might be managing its own document. So it's a decentralized setup. We see individual silos where there's no cooperation, and well, that leads to all kinds of issues. And thirdly, the instructions, like I said before, are hard to understand because many times they are created by engineers. The result of all of that is that due to the inefficient processes for technical documentation, costs will be way too high, so unnecessary costs. There will be duplication of information, and there will certainly be inconsistencies since different departments are not reusing each other's technical information. So they might be using different terminology for the same thing, actually. And lastly, the instructions are, well, 99% of the time provided as a PDF file because, well, that's simply the only way they can provide it since they created in Microsoft Word, and that's the only output that you can provide. And I'll show you later on as well that it's not a future-proof format of creating your technical documentation. So if you created the traditional way, the conventional way, technical documentation, you might, this is actually an existing platform that a customer offers his service engineers. You might ending up, well, needing to use this kind of platform. Well, you will have the possibility to specifically look like you see in this instance for maintenance information, but the result, if you hit the search button, will be a bunch of PDF files. In this case, you will find like 13 PDF files. The problem is that if you're a service engineer, you need to specific information, you first need to find out in what specific PDF file you can find that information. So that takes time. And after you find the actual PDF file, you will have to scroll through it to find the information you're looking for. And after you have found it, you hopefully may you hopefully understand the instructions that have been written by this engineer. So this is, in our opinion, why it takes so much time in practice nowadays when you set up technical documentation in a traditional way. For service engineers, they need sometimes even half of their time to find information. It's not clear enough, and it's provided in this kind of platforms that simply takes too much time. So that was about the instructions, the service part. Let's take a closer look at how parts information, how that is provided to users, and how in practice, users are looking for parts. What we see in practice that when a service engineer or a customer needs a part, what he does is that he simply calls his customer. Because that's well the simplest thing to do, and he starts explaining what part she needs, or he might be sending an email with unclear photographs showing the part that he's looking for. But what we also see is that companies nowadays provide parts manual that are not product specific. So if you have, for instance, a specific vehicle, and you provide your users a parts manual showing 4 kinds of axes they might be needing, there is a big chance that they end up actually ordering the wrong one. So by providing information, parts information this way, so again, a very traditional way, general parts manuals, you end up with high downtime for your machinery, since it simply takes too much time to get the part that you need to replace it. Another thing is that your service profitability will be low, since you might need 2 or 3 or even more visits to actually replace and to fix the problem your customer has. So you will end up eventually with unsatisfied customers, which what we talked about is the top goal of your service business. And that is actually also sustained by research, again done by the Aberdeen Group, that the top cause for ineffective service is the unavailability of parts, or that incorrect parts are being delivered for service. So now we have seen what traditional documentation setup looks like and what issues you get out of that, and why you don't meet your goals for service. So let's now have a closer look how you can improve things to actually reach the business goals that you set for service, for your aftermarket. This is the so-called technical information maturity letter that we have seen in previous webinars as well. So if you're working in a traditional way, like I just talked about, you will be on step 0 or 1 on this maturity level, actually meaning that you still have a very product-centric way of approaching technical documentation. Your users will need a lot of time to find it, and after they have found it, they will have difficulties understanding your instructions. So the idea, the target is to get higher on this ladder, since that will improve your technical documentation and add more business value. But how do we do that? Well, one of the most important questions where you create and manage technical documentation is that you should be considering your target audience. So for whom am I actually writing these instructions? So questions you need to ask yourself are, for instance, what is the user's educational background, or what is his or her level of working experience, and what tasks does he or she need to perform? So actually you need to know what information is needed by the user in order to be able to, to help him to do his job the most efficient way. And what should be the level of detail of that information? And that's of course based on his working experience and educational background. So that's one of the improvements that you can do. So instead of having a product-centric approach, changing to a more user-centric approach by actually asking yourself these questions. But there is more. In order to make sure that your users understand what you write, you should be applying a standard. There are writing rules. One of them is simplified technical English. That is a standard that was created in the 80s, actually for aircraft manufacturers, to make sure that service instructions are understood by non-native speakers of English and that service was done properly. This is a standard consisting of about 60 writing rules, and by applying the standard, you will make sure that your technical information is easy to understand. You will reduce ambiguity, and you will make sure that that the correct technical terms are used and that they are used consistently. And well, it provides you with much more benefits, and one of them being that it will save you a lot of translation costs, since you will end up with more concise technical information. And as you know, the less words you have, the lower your translation costs will be. So that was about the written part, but instead of using those unclear photographs shown before, these kind of technical illustrations would be would help them a lot more, because they include instructions themselves, and they will provide the support users need to understand the written instructions you have created. So please stop using unclear photographs and start using these kind of clear illustrations. But there is not only a content aspect when it comes to making sure that your aftermarket is organized in an efficient way. There is also the technical part of it. So what we have seen is that in traditional documentations, most of the time is set up in Microsoft Word, and that will only allow you to provide PDF files. What we see that's not the most efficient way to do service. A more efficient, smarter way, future-proof way of doing it would be by, instead of using Microsoft Word, using this kind of database, a content management system. And we have talking about this in our previous webinars as well. So your documentation will be set up in XML modules, and they're enriched with metadata, which will allow you to not only reuse smartly documentation and make sure that you get consistency, but it will also allow you to make different kind of publication. If you've set up an XML, you will be able to publish it online, or in the future you might willing to provide your users access via, for instance, Google Glasses, to make sure that they have quick and easy access to information. So this is the technical setup that will provide you with future-proof documentation. Now I would like to switch to, because I want to show you that by setting it up smarter, so in a content management system, XML, and by using your 3D data for finding parts, there are much more efficient ways of providing access to users and making sure that they can find information easy and quicker. So let me switch over to a different screen. Let me see, can you see all of this? Yes, you can, thank you. Okay, what you see here is a platform. It can be either online or offline. And imagine on your website you have this portal with specific access for your customers. So they will have their own username and password, allowing them to get access to only their specific parts and service information for the products they bought. So by providing it that way, it will allow you to provide access much more quicker. For instance, if I need to find a specific spare parts, I don't need to call the company to make pictures, to send them over. No, simply by using your 3D data and providing it to your users, they will be able to, search for parts themselves, and they'll be able to do it visually. So they don't need to know what the name of that part is or the article number. Simply by clicking on a specific part, the system will tell them that this is actually the main panel and what the article number is. And that will allow them, by clicking on the shopping cart, to, well, efficiently and very quickly order this specific part and well, get on with the job that they need to perform for service. So that is a big difference compared to the more traditional way of setting up technical documentation and access to spare parts. You can switch to the view as well, but it's not only for well, getting information about parts. You can integrate that with the instructions for your products. In this case, for the main panel, for instance, like you can see here, there are icons, and they will allow you to, in one click, go to the specific instructions that you need to replace this specific parts. So contrary to the traditional way, when you have a bunch of PDF files which take a lot of time to find the information and calling companies to get the part, you can do it this way. And as you provide specific access to your customers, so they will only be seeing their own products, there won't be any wrong parts ordering anymore. So that is a much more efficient and smarter way of providing access to your users. And in the future, you might even have your service engineer wearing Google glasses, looking at the machines. The machines will be recognized, and they will be able to get access to this system as well and order the specific parts they need or read the instructions they require to replace the part. So let's go back to the presentation. So what we have seen is that by improving the quality of service data, and we have seen the ways there are by applying simplified technical English, technical illustrations instead of photographs, and by setting it up more smartly, you can make sure that users don't need that much time anymore to find the information, and that are able to instantly order the parts they need. So this way you will be able to meet your business goals that you set for service. It will increase your service profitability as less time is needed. It will it will improve the uptime of your machinery, as you will get, it will be easier to get the part that you need. But also very important, especially if you're in sales, is that you can actually boost your after sales business. So you can turn that, well, technical documentation is many times seen as a cost center, but actually by using this kind of tool, you can turn that into a money maker, since that will allow you to, well, sell more parts to your customers, and will provide you also with a stronger competitive position, as your competitors might not have this kind of solution. And you will end up, and that's what you actually wanted when we looked at your business goals based on the Aberdeen research done, you will end up with happy customer, and that's what you would like best. So let's fulfill your business goals for service. I've told you what ways there are to do that. Please do not hesitate to contact me. You can see my contact details on this slide, both my email address and my phone number, if you like to well, to talk about your current setup and to see how we can help you to well, to meet your business goals for service. Thank you very much for joining this webinar. And again, please let me know if you have any questions, or if you would like to us to look at the current setup of your service data and how to improve it. Well, thanks again, and hope to talk to you soon. Have a nice evening. Bye-bye.